All right, so today we're going to be talking about dividing integers. And as you just saw in the video, dividing integers is the same kind of idea as multiplying integers. If you are dividing two terms and you have an odd number of negative factors or within your problem, then you're going to have a negative answer. If you have an even number of negative integers within the problem, you're going to have a positive answer. So that tic-tac-toe that we did works the same here. Remember, the positives go down the diagonal and everything else is negative. So if we're taking a positive number divided by a negative, we get a negative. A negative divided by a positive is a negative. A negative divided by a negative turns into a positive. So that same idea for both multiplying and dividing will work the same. Whereas the adding and subtracting, we have to have our separate rules for. So when we go ahead and divide integers with the same sign, the quotient of two integers with the same sign is going to be positive. Sorry, the board has been acting up a little bit today. As you can see, it's not really giving me the... There we go. All right, so we now have dividing integers with different signs. The quotient, when you have one sign that's positive and one that's negative, our answer will be negative. And they have examples here. Positive 6 divided by 2 equals 3. Negative 24 divided by negative 2 equals positive 12. And then in the second one, 6 divided by negative 2 equals negative 3. And negative 24 divided by positive 2 equals negative 12. Again, you should be saying negative with those negative signs and not minus because they are negative values. All right, so now we have an example here where it has 6 divided by 0. And it doesn't have a value. It says equals undefined. Undefined means it's not possible. So oftentimes, sometimes you'll actually see people write a value of 0 with a line through it. 0 with a line through it means it's not possible. There's no answer. Okay? Whereas 0 divided by 6, if you have nothing, you can divide it by 6 people because everybody's going to have nothing. Okay? Whereas when it's undefined, because I cannot take 6 of something and divide it by nobody. I have to divide it by something. So that's really important to know. You never will get an answer. You will never be able to divide by 0. If you don't believe me, go ahead and try it in your calculator. If you ever take a number and divide it by 0, it'll say error. And that's because it's not possible. It's undefined. It may, some calculators, depending on what level you are, it may actually say undefined. But most of the time it says error. Because you cannot divide by 0. You can take 0, though, and divide it by something. Okay? So these are the division problems. When you get into problems now, you're going to start to see more than one operation. You're going to start to see addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So you want to make sure that when you're doing that, you're still following the order of operations, which a reminder from last year was the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or a lot of people used PEMDAS. There's, remember, 4 steps to the order of operations. P was the parentheses. E stands for the exponents. MD is all one step, multiplication and division, but you just go from left to right in the problem. So if multiplication is first on the problem, you do that first. If division is first in the problem, you actually do that first. The only time that that will ever change is if you have a fraction bar where you have something on top and something on the bottom. In that case, the division actually is done at the end. And then addition and subtraction, AS. This last step, again, you go from left to right. Sometimes with this problem, I'll actually draw a little arrow over the top of the MD and the AS so you remember that you're going from order. Okay? So let's go ahead and try a problem here. X minus 8 over y squared. And we're going to solve this when x equals 4 and and y equals 2. So we're going to do a little substituting, kind of like we did last year in 6th grade. I grab a different color so you can see the difference between the original and what we do. Wherever I see x, I'm going to place a 4, and wherever I see y, I'm going to place a 2. But I write everything else that's not an x or y as stated and in the same order. So instead of x, I'm going to put 4 minus 8 all over, which is the fraction bar, 2 squared. And then I have to go ahead and go through my PEMDAS, my order of operations. I have no parentheses. In a sense, the fraction bar here is a parentheses. Everything on the top has to be done first, and then everything on the bottom. So then I go ahead, no, I have an exponent, so I have to solve that next, which is the bottom. So I still have 4 minus 8 on the top, and 2 squared is the same thing as 2 times 2, because there's the base of 2, and I multiply it by itself twice by the exponent, and so I get 4. All right, and now I do have the fraction bar, but I have no multiplication or division on the top and no multiplication or division on the bottom, so I have to go ahead and do adding and subtracting, which on the top I have subtracting. When I have this, remember I'm subtracting. The first number is smaller than the second number, so I'm going to go ahead and keep change, change. I prefer to turn everything into addition and then follow. If the signs are the same, I add them together. If the signs are different, I take the difference. And then if they're added, the sign stays the same. If I take the difference, whichever is heavier is the sign. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 4 plus a negative 8. And now I have different signs, so I take the difference of 8 and 4, which is 4. And then the heavier number, the one farther from 0, is actually the negative 8, so my answer is going to be negative 4 over 4. And then I can simplify this. It's my last step, which to simplify this, I can just simplify it, or I divide. I use that fraction as a division sign. So I have negative 4 fourths, which is the same thing as negative divided by positive, which equals a negative. And 4 divided by 4 is just 1. So my answer is negative 1. I used the order of operations to do that. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and add one more example in here. And we're going to go ahead and find the mean of the following integers. We have 3, negative 10, negative 2, 13, and 11. Okay? Important word here that you need to understand is we are finding the mean. Remember from last year, mean was the average. Sorry, my board is acting funny right now. It's not letting me just underline mean. Okay? Mean is the average. And remember, to find the average, you have to add all the numbers up, and then you divide by how many numbers you added together. So when I look at this, I have 5 different terms, and I'm going to add these up. The way that I like to add them up is I like to group them. All the positives I'm going to add together, all the negatives I add together, because I know I'm adding like terms or the same sign, so I can just keep the same sign and add them. And then I do one last problem where I add the different positive and negative together, and that's when I take the difference. So I'm actually going to rewrite these as 3, 13, 11, negative 10, and negative 2. And I'm going to go ahead and group them by the positives and the negatives to add them together so that I can find that average. So I go ahead and add 3 plus 13 to get 16. 16 plus 11 is going to give me the 27. All right, and then I have negative 10 plus negative 2. I add them together to get 12, and because it's negative, I get negative 12. So now I just have the 2 values. And now I'm going to go ahead and add the 27 and the negative 12. They're different, so I take the difference, and the difference is going to be 15. And because the heavier value is positive, my answer there will be positive as well. So I added everything together, but I still have to find the average. So I have to divide by how many I added together, which was 5. So 15 divided by 5 equals 3, because positive divided by positive equals a positive. So my answer for the mean of these numbers is 3. Keep in mind the signs are very important. If you added them together and there was negative, and then I divided my negative by a positive, my answer would actually be negative then. So remember, mean is just the average, something that is kind of a review from last year, because you will see problems like this on the test on Wednesday.